Alaskans, wherever you are, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Welcome, everybody, to the Must Read Alaska Show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. I hope everybody is having an awesome day because it is sunny out, and I hope everybody's enjoying the sun. Going to have a great 4th of July week/weekend. And for folks that listen, watch, and read Must Read Alaska, you want to help keep the lights on, just go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right-hand side, there's a little donate button. Every $5, $10, $100 helps keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska. If you want to sponsor the Must Read Alaska Show, #1 podcast in Alaska, just email me, John, John, at mustreadalaska.com. I'd love to have you sponsor the show. Today, we have a returning guest. I think she has been on maybe 3 times. I'm very happy that and thrilled that you're going to come back on. She is on the new Mayor of Anchorage's transition team. She is also the president of the AFL-CIO, the largest conglomerate of unions in Alaska. Joelle Hall, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show.
Thanks for having me back. Nice to be here today.
Yeah, glad you're here. It'll be fun to kind of talk a little bit about your role with the new mayor's transition team, any kind of high-level stuff that's going on, and your thoughts on the inauguration. But first, tell me about your role on the new mayor's transition team and kind of what that entails and how that team was kind of brought to be.
So I've been asked to participate in a piece of, she's got 3 major buckets, good government, safe streets and parks, and then kind of like building for the future. Well, inside the building for the future bucket is, a topic that lots and lots of people who listen to this podcast are really, really thinking about, which is workforce. Not only how can we grow our own, how can we get people to stay in Alaska who graduated from high school, how can we get people to return to Alaska? So there is some things a municipality can do. There are lots of things a municipality can't do on those things, right? So I was involved in the workforce portion of this, and my compatriot, the co-leader of this group is Jonathan Taylor, who is one of the vice presidents at the university. So I think they took kind of like an apprenticeship oriented organization and a baccalaureate, oriented post-secondary oriented institution. And we started talking about workforce. So our bucket actually ended up being workforce and childcare, because they're obviously inextricably linked. And that's a lot. So that group was big. So we were asked to be part of what she calls the core team. And really what that's meant is that we're facilitating these meetings. And the meetings are, the first time we had a Zoom, there was 300 people on the Zoom. So this is a pretty big group of people.
That's a big meeting.
It's a big meeting. And so we're, Michael Fredericks from SALT, along with Northern Compass, are helping kind of apply a system to acquiring input. And they're using a piece of software that's called Mural. And what that does is it allows you to take notes in real time. It comes in the form of like a sticky note. And then what we've basically done is we've put everybody in groups and we just asked people to tell us what's on their mind. What's the most important thing to you? And then these stickies stack themselves in like how many people say the same thing. Because of course, when you're talking about workforce, people are going to say the same thing. We need a lot more of that. And what can the community do to do something about that? So workforce and childcare, we got a lot of input from what we think needs to happen. What are the challenges that we face? What are some of the tactics we could use in order to make life better, in that we have this very narrow focus area, like I said. Now, meanwhile, there's people meeting in other rooms and in other Zooms who are talking about government in the terms of good government, meaning, we have some cleanup to do. We have books that have not been audited in 2 years. We've got lots of people, we've got lots of vacancies. We've had to fire some people. So you got to put Humpty Dumpty back together again a little tiny bit. So there's that. And then there's the we have collective bargaining agreements that and wage scales that are clearly out of sync with the public sector. So much so that, you know, Anchorage has a hard time plowing roads, and a lot of it's just financial. You know, when people take other jobs that pay more, it's a very, very important skill set. Then that group also met to talk about that relating to public safety, and the way she's phrasing that is safe streets and trails. So that was a lot of people who come out of the public safety, the parks and trails community, and they were talking about the challenges that they see in their world. In building a better future, there was an economic development section, an energy section, obviously housing and homelessness, and workforce development. And then workforce development broke into workforce development and childcare, and then housing, and then unsheltered people, those being they're in the car together, but they're not the same thing, right? Like they both are going the same direction, but they're not exactly the same thing. So we've been meeting in Zooms, and then last week we had a 5-hour meeting at UAA, and I think I had
Like an in-person one, 5-hour
Yes.
meeting. Nice.
I think I had 25 people in workforce development section that I was facilitating the meeting. And so it's all different walks of life, you know, people who do workforce development as a business, people who for a couple of our meetings, we had somebody who owned a number of like chain restaurants. We had Lael Fairburn, who owns restaurants in town. And then we had people from the Department of Labor. So it was kind of like the gamut on workforce development. A few folks from my world who run union apprenticeships, you know, construction, public sector, private sector, the whole gamut was there. And so we drilled down into what we thought were the things that this administration should tackle in the first 6 months. What can we do in a year? And then what takes 3 years? So every group was given that same task. And then
Wow.
we're in the process of collating all that information basically into like 5 to 10 page report from each individual section, which will give her the input from groups. This group is set up this way, but of course there's other ways. If folks who are listening to this live in Anchorage and they have input, you can also just go to the mayor's, well, it's probably on the mayor's, now it's probably on her official page, but there are lots of ways for you to kind of like involve yourself in this process. And if you want to get your 2 points across, you want to make a suggestion, it's a fairly open process. So that is how it's been structured. I was involved in a previous transition, and it was before Zoom. And so you did the same thing, but you did it like in a town hall format. And in a town, it was multiple meetings, multiple meetings, but all kind of like town hall format. So town halls would take really interesting turns. Like I remember being so struck. I was at Abbott Loop Elementary, and everybody was talking about the libraries. Now, this was significantly before anybody was talking about libraries, right? This isn't the before times. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, the libraries, they turned out in force to talk about how important they think their role in serving the public was. So that just like one of my takeaways, my like remembering like the libraries really turned out to like advocate for themselves, which is great. So that's how the process has worked. And there's a list on the mayor's website of like everybody who's on these things, but generally we're paired with somebody like it's Bill Pop and Radica from the Anchorage Downtown Partnership who are doing economic development and infrastructure, and got Carol Gore, who's now with Widener Properties, teaming with the guy who is the head of homelessness services at Catholic Social Services on unsheltered homelessness. And then there's a housing people who is like the housing people who are not necessarily the homeless people. So this will be a really good document, and then we give it to the mayor. And what we're all hoping is that as I said, I've done this before. You disgorge all this information and then you're not really sure who's going to do what to who, and then you're not necessarily asked to help in the future. But I think this mayor is going to work to try to keep these groups somewhat intact, because these are people who live and work in their businesses every day. If their business is, serving the homeless people, that's what they do all day. My job is talking to people who run apprenticeships every day. So I know more so than the average person. I mean, clearly the person running the apprenticeship knows more than I do, but I know their phone number. So I can definitely give them a call and make sure that what I'm saying is the truth. And so getting this group together so that, which always helps in terms of identifying, people have good ideas and they may not see that there's a potential challenge in that idea if you don't engage the right people. So,
Well, they may not even think their idea is good until they say it out loud in a group and everybody loves it.
well, that may be true too. Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking forward to this group, my group, our group, continuing on to meet in some way, shape, or form to talk about workforce in the municipality of Anchorage. And I believe, because I've right now there's many grants available for workforce development. If you're a for-profit company, you're a nonprofit company, you're a state agency, you're a local government. And I'm a firm believer that Alaska should get every little piece of the pie it can possibly get.
Yeah.
And so we need to be getting the municipality up on step to help some of these entities who could benefit from more. We can always use more money in the training systems, right? Because there's never enough money to train as many people as we need. And then we talked about a marketing campaign, because marketing, you gotta, people, we have to work harder at communicating, particularly to our young people, that there's a future here. And so I think that's a really big part of what we need to do.
Yeah. So do you, question to you is this, because I think we get asked this, or when I have conversations with folks, I'll just speak for myself. This topic gets brought up a lot. Was this just one group or one, basically people ask me, is this just a bunch of Democrats in a room trying to solve things? Or is this a group of folks from all walks of life, all parties, nonpartisan? Is this a diverse group of folks, or is this just one kind of sector of folks?
Well, Bill Popp was there. Bill Popp's, he ran as a non-Democrat. I mean, people may not view him as deeply conservative, but I know that Suzanne is trying really hard to attract people from all walks of life. And but there's a difference between being a person of a different walk of life who has an opinion about something and being somebody who's from a different walk of life who has some expertise about something. So, I think these groups tend to focus on people who have who are working in the sectors that we're talking about. So, and if there are opinions about that are not from the people who work in the industries, then I mean, everybody's free to express their opinion. But I think she went straight to the people who are, doing the work in this town. And whether they're RDIUN, she's talking to the people who are currently doing the work and trying to figure out, what were we doing that was working before? What were we doing that wasn't working before? And then how do we deliver services better?
So are you hopeful that some of these recommendations that specifically your group made could help keep kind of this next generation, maybe not only in Anchorage, but in Alaska in general?
Yes, yes. I mean, obviously, this group's focus is Anchorage because it's the municipality of Anchorage, but yes, writ large, it is one of our biggest challenges as a state is that we're, well, I have my ideas about why all this is happening, and I would probably, most people who are listening to the show would not agree with my ideas, which is totally fine. But there's we need to do a couple things. I think there needs to be kids kind of just like found their way until now. And now there's the job opportunities and the opportunities, they're there, but they're harder to find now. And we've got to be more intentional about aligning our kids' futures to the jobs they're going to find. I'm really hopeful that this is kind of an aside, but the new ASD Academies model is also one of those places where there's going to be opportunity for business to actually interact with a young person, a very young person, and say, this is what we do here. Is this interesting to you? Because I think when people really have a notion about what kind of jobs excite them, it makes the path to get to where they want to go much clearer. I mean, I had no earthly idea what I wanted to do with my life when I graduated from high school. So I joined the Army, because, you can hang out in the Army for 4 years and do really fun stuff and figure it all out. I knew I wasn't ready for college. I needed to go do something else. I needed to go have a challenge and do something else interesting. But I think there's alignment, and so some of it is, how do we make sure that the systems understand what kind of jobs are available? And I was on, secondarily, this is also involved in the mayor's transition a little bit, but I was on a call yesterday with AEDC where we're working on a very intentional, like, veterans retention project, because this is also a group of adults that might want to stay in our community. If we get to figure out how to connect them to the good jobs for them and their families, we know we need them. They're excellent employees. So streamlining that and making it us be way more, like, we got to work a little harder to retain people, not just like, you're lucky if you get to live here. I think we're past that. I think we have to work at it to keep our kids here.
Yeah, I cross my fingers. I hope my kids stick around here for a while. You blink your eyes, and my daughter's turning 16 this year, and it just seems like yesterday they were going off to kindergarten. And so, man, I
Well,
really hope this next generation finds good jobs here in Alaska.
I saw in the paper that the governor upped the performance scholarship and expanded the performance scholarship. I think this is really important. My daughter just graduated from UAA, and she's staying, right? She graduated from UAA, she got a good job, she's staying here. My son is a student at UAA. He won't qualify for the performance scholarship because we drug him through high school by, the hair I had on the top of his head. But he made it through, and he's got straight A's in college. But they're going to stay here, right? But incentivizing our kids with really affordable, high quality post-secondary education, this is going to be the commodity that moves young people around this country. And the more competitive we are for that age group, I think the better Alaska's future is.
So is there, you've had a bunch of these meetings, you've had a lot of Zoom meetings, in-person meetings with 300 people on them. You're probably hearing from lots of folks, lots of experts, lots of opinions. What's the overall sentiment with folks? Are they, that are in these meetings, on these calls, are they excited to tackle this? Are they doubtful? Are they hopeful? Are they kind of like, oh crap, what did I get myself into? What's the overall vibe?
I think the overall vibe is, I think we're all optimistic, cautiously optimistic. I'm sure I'm not telling anybody who listens to this podcast, I mean, government moves slow by design, right? It's because it has a different mandate. Efficiency is not its mandate. Fairness is its mandate. So it moves slower. And we've got to just try to figure out where we can accelerate things and identify the systems in government that aren't working properly. I know that I was not in this group, but like, there's concerns about what happens in the building department. I think there's systems that have to just get tidied up. Like there's just been enough complaining, enough process problems that we have some systems that have to get tightened up. We got to hire more cops. We got to hire a lot of people. And what I'm hoping is that, smart people who have a passion for their community will come when the work's exciting. And Becky Wint Peterson, who just left GCI to come back to work for the Muni, I'm pretty sure she took a big fat pay cut to do that.
She probably took a 50% pay cut.
She probably did. And that is because, in her mind, she's probably thinking, well, this is exciting. It's exciting. This is the work I want to do. Maybe she doesn't want to be a corporate lawyer. Maybe she wants to be a different kind of lawyer. And so getting the opportunity to get in and do really interesting work, I'm hoping that interesting work will bring a lot of people back to the municipality that don't work there right now.
Nice. Okay, so my last question is this. Maybe last, I might have one more, but so these reports are these, just to give people some tangible thought process on what they are. Is this like a 1-pager, or is this like a 20-page report that each of these groups is handing off to the mayor?
Each group is going to have a 5 to 10 page report. So it'll be relatively detailed. Some have the capacity to be more detailed than others, right? Right now, the municipality of Anchorage doesn't engage in workforce development. So what is the appropriate role for government in workforce development, right? So there's a little bit of like, we all know that everybody's doing a lot of different things, but we probably need to get everybody in a room and figure out what we need. We didn't do that in this process, right? This process, we said, we think the mayor should bring in all of the players and then say, where's the gap in our delivery system? What do we need to do? Who is falling through the cracks? Who should we be focusing our skill building on? Is, if we're going to house people, you need those people to go get jobs now. So what are we going to do about people who are leaving homelessness? Like, how are we going to get them in the workforce? Like, maybe there's a very discrete box where city government can get grants to do a specific type of thing that's then supported by the public. But because they haven't actually performed this role too much in the past, I think we actually may be a little slower because there isn't currently a setup to do that. But there isn't an employer in this town. I mean, I think about it, in the past, I've lived here for a really long time. It's always been economic development, because there's just an assumption that people here will be here to work. Well, I actually don't think you can make that assumption anymore. Workforce development is economic development. And we've got to get those two things, like we got to right size we can't recruit a bunch of people and a bunch of businesses to come here when there's nobody to do the work, right? We got to now those two things have to work in tandem for the first time ever. And I think that's a true statement. And the Muni's never done it before. So we got a little bit of invention to do.
Yeah, and I think, the Muni's not the only one struggling. I think it's tough for many, many folks in communities all over Alaska to retain, hire new people and keep their current staff. It's very competitive, and it's hard when we live in a place like Alaska sometimes.
It's so true. And that's just for the Muni staff, as well as trying to make this the kind of place that people want to live and work, right? What's the role of the Muni in that? How can they be helping the other entities that are out there to market the city, to help somebody, to work with to liaise with other departments? Like, what's the best way to design something? We didn't ferret that out in 2 weeks. I know you're shocked to hear, but we will.
A couple more weeks to get that.
That's kind of what, yeah. I just needed till tomorrow and they cut me off. Yeah. So but I think that's where we're headed.
So do you have any words of wisdom or thoughts for folks? I've never been a fan of, if your person doesn't get elected, I'm going to move to a different country or move out of the city. There's tons of people in Anchorage who maybe didn't vote for this mayor, going to stay around. They're weary. Do you have any words of wisdom for folks whose candidate maybe didn't get elected, but still want to be contributing members to the municipality of Anchorage?
Well, yeah. No one group of people has a monopoly on good ideas. But good ideas have to be delivered, it's all in the delivery. It's not in the who, it's in the delivery, right? So what I would say is, if you have a different idea about how to accomplish that, I don't think there's any disagreement that government needs to work better, because we didn't get to drive our cars for 5 days for a couple of years now. I don't think there's any disagreement that we don't live in a safe community. And I don't think there's any disagreement that we are struggling to build a future for ourselves here. We can't keep our kids here. We can't retain a workforce. We are on the struggle bus. There is no doubt what the problems are. I think everybody would agree about the problems. The question is, what's the remedy? And there's no one group of people on either side of the political aisle have a monopoly on what the remedy is. And it's only going to work, really, if there is a dialogue and the people who don't think that's a really good point, bring up their side and engage in the process. I tend to believe in respectful disagreements in the legislative process, because I think it's actually how you get stuff done. You say these are problem areas, and you maybe you need to think about this and this and this. And that is what I would say to people. Everybody's got a vantage point, everybody's got a viewpoint. And if we all agree we have at least these 3 set of problems, then how do we work as together to fix them? And it's about working together. And I don't think that Suzanne is the kind of person who, she starts off all of her meetings is by saying, we are going to have a low ego, nonpartisan approach to doing this work. And if you've ever met Suzanne, you'll know she's kind of quiet. She's not going to be up on the stage taking the mic out of someone's hand so she can, yuck, yuck, yuck. That's not the way she is. She's going to listen. And she came out of the corporate world. I just think that she's got one of those brains that is waiting to intake data and information, and will make decisions after she acquires a bunch of information. And if you disagree with the tech that's being taken, you should absolutely help somebody understand why you think it's bad.
I don't scream at people.
Right. Well, screaming at people, calling people names,
yeah,
it might feel good to do it, but it isn't effective, right? I mean, you've worked in Juneau, I've worked in Juneau, and sometimes the social media world would like you to believe that it is auguring in, and your way or the highway is how the world changes. Well, it's the exact opposite of that. The world changes by having a relationship with somebody and being and having a conversation and expressing how different you'd like to see the world.
Well, guess I have one more question for you if you have 2 more minutes. The inauguration. Sure. So yeah, I saw pictures, great turnout, lots of folks there. I also saw some videos of somebody apparently was on like a blowhorn the entire time, yelling at screaming at people. Tell me, were you there? How was it? Give me the details.
I was there. It was lovely. Yes, there were some people there who were upset about camera footage for a specific APD action, and they wanted the footage released. And so they were yelling about the footage, intermittently, they would stop for a while, they would go on for a while. Suzanne's comment was, you know, I believe in the First Amendment. These people have every right to be here, and, you know, and she went up and talked to him afterwards. They're like, we gotta talk about it. She's like, let's talk about it. It's about the releasing of body cam footage, you know? We
They
have
were probably like,
cameras on
we
our
didn't expect
cops
you to
and
actually talk to us about it.
what's that again?
But they were probably like, crap, we didn't expect the mayor to come actually talk to us about it.
Well, I don't know. They were yelling at her. But she went up there, and just engaged in a conversation with them. And I don't know, I don't follow this particular kind of public policy very closely at all. I don't know what the rules are for the release of body cam footage. And if the community doesn't know, then we need to clarify. And if it's not completely codified in regulation, that's not fair. That's not right. We need to, if it exists, we need to have a rule. And so hopefully she can work with the assembly to get that codified and on the book so everybody knows what to expect. And they were just there having their say. And everybody, we proceeded with our job and they did theirs, and it was respectful in as much as respectful as a protest can be. I do a lot of protests, Jonathan. I'm sure you've heard that the labor movement likes to
I've
walk in
seen
a
you on the
circle
clips
and
of
yell real
Juno.
loud. Yeah, we do this a lot. Like, I mean, I've been to a lot of it didn't faze me one little bit. This is part of my job, man.
So I appreciate you coming on. It's fun hearing from somebody from the mayor's transition team on what their ideas and thoughts are going to be moving forward. Do you have any last minute thoughts here before we head off?
I think that the people who live in Anchorage, who would like to make their opinions known and kind of really think about the issues that plague our city, I would encourage you to write an email to the new mayor. If you have answers, if you have ideas, if you have comments, I mean, we haven't done anything yet, there's not really much to comment on, but if you have ideas and if you have thoughts, about the big issues that we're going to be facing: housing, childcare, homelessness, crime. I mean, we've got the poo-poo platter of municipal problems, right? So, I mean, I'm really excited about some of the things that we can do. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to turn it around, because I think we all know we got to do something, right?
Well, I appreciate you joining us. We will put the links to the mayor's, I think if she's on the main website, we'll just put the link to the main website in the podcast description. And folks, I would encourage, if you live in Anchorage and your candidate didn't win, still get involved in the process. Listen, I was and am a Mayor Bronson supporter. I volunteered for his campaign. I supported his campaign financially. There's a new mayor in town, and so I think it's important that just because your mayor didn't get elected, I still think you need to be involved in the game. So I want to encourage folks to reach out in a respectful way, get involved, stay involved in the process. And Joelle, you're welcome back anytime to the Must Read Alaska show. For folks that listen, watch, and read Must Read Alaska, you want to help to keep the lights on, just go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right-hand side, there's a little donate button. Every $5, $10, $100 helps keep the lights on here at Must Read Alaska. You want to sponsor the show, just email me, John, John, at mustreadalaska.com. Hope everybody is having a phenomenal summer. Till next time.
Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy 4th of July. Till next time, I'm John Quick from somewhere in Alaska. Thanks so much for joining us.